Hey everyone, welcome to First Impressions on the Scratch and Track podcast, presented by the Dude Grim Show and co-produced by Mr. IVEST. I'm the Dude.
And I'm Grim, and today we are going to give our first impression cousin of Cousin by Wilco. Cousin. And that's not spelled C-U-Z-Z-I-N, which I would have thought, but...
It's not really Wilco's style.
No, I think they typically just spell things more in the way that they would be in the King's English.
Yes. Well, I know we talked about this. This album came out, I think, last Friday.
Yeah.
And we've had the pleasure of listening to it a few times. And
Nice.
yeah. And I know the first time I listened to it, it was like, when you and I talked a little bit, I think you said you found it maybe a little boring. To me, it sounded a little tired, at least in the beginning.
Yep,
it took a while for it to kind of get going. And then once it got going, I felt like it went to some interesting places that, I'd be willing to revisit.
Absolutely. But nothing has really grabbed me by them, honestly, since Schmilko came out. Schmilko, yeah. And that one starts out subdued too, but it's just got more energy to. I don't know. I think there was some interesting. Number one, the cover art is quite fascinating for this album. I don't really know what it is, but it's pretty interesting. And this is the first time since their self-titled album, released in 2009, that they enlisted the help of an outside producer.
Oh, interesting.
And that producer's name was Kate Laban. Now, I don't know much about her, but she has been, I guess, she has 6 solo albums, and she has a duo. She is a Welsh musician. I think it says that she sings in both English and Welsh, which is interesting. So, and I guess she had recorded something at the Loft in Chicago, which is where they and so that's how her and Jeff Tweedy met, and the rest is history, which is kind of interesting.
Wow, that is cool. Well, I wonder if that's, sort of her. I wonder what her vision was, or her influence into producing this. Again, not being familiar with, I think, her work, it's hard for me to say.
Yeah, for sure.
But if other people are out there and you guys are familiar with her work, definitely let us know how she is, how she put her touch on this album, or how you think she did.
Yeah, I would be interested to know that. But I mean, if I hadn't read that, I guess I wouldn't have been. To me, it's still not different enough where I would have thought to myself, wow, what did they do different here? This is a complete, you know what I mean? I mean,
complete departure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it was interesting. When I first started listening to it, I think the first, again, nothing really grabbed me. It wasn't until I think about track 5, which is Sunlight Ends. I think that might be the most unique song on the album. Again, it's very somber, and then it sounds disjointed at parts. But it has this kind of strange beat and even an Eastern feel to it. And that's where I was like, okay, my ears perked. I at least thought it was interesting. I don't know if I could go so far as to say that I liked it, but I at least was like, okay, maybe I need to, listen to this a few more times. And there's, on the second half of the album, there's a few more tracks like that.
The title track, Cousin, for example. Pittsburgh.
The title track, Cousin. Yeah. Pittsburgh. So as I was listening to it for, I don't know, the third time this morning, I think one of my biggest issues maybe is that I don't like the way the album flows.
Oh.
I think if I want to become more familiar with it, I think I could actually put the tracks in a different order that I might actually like better.
I guess I could see what you mean, just because of the whole fact that, I don't know, we both seem to independently come back and say, I really thought it picked up in the second half, which...
Yeah. Well, so the first track, Infinite Surprise, I felt I kind of felt like it was a little depressing, which is fine. I love a good depressing song. I felt like it went on a little too long, and it sort of
it is the longest song on the album.
Yeah, it builds up and has this like electric guitar part, and at a certain point, it just kind of sounds like nails on a chalkboard. And I imagine that's what they were going for, but for a first track on the album, I kind of found it to be a difficult listen.
Yeah.
Now, I actually thought this would actually be a better track to end the album with. If you listen to it again, if you listen to the track again, I think it would go really well sort of at the end. And start off the album with, move another track up where that has like a little more energy to it. I thought that would be sort of a good approach. Just my opinion here.
Okay.
My impression.
Interesting.
Yeah. Dude, I don't know if you picked up on this, but in the song Pittsburgh, I found these to be the most interesting and somewhat confusing lyrics that really stood out.
Do tell.
The lyrics, shit into a rose. I overheard the TSA going through my clothes.
Yeah,
I don't get it.
It's kind of funny.
But yeah, it's just weird. So
I like the
I don't
title
know
called A Bowl and a Pudding.
A Bowl and a Pudding?
Yeah,
I like that song.
Yeah, I do too. I do too.
I will say this album, and I think this was good timing for it to come out, sort of had like a fall feel to it, which if you guys, haven't voted, we posted something earlier this month about what is your favorite fall album. Mm-hmm. And, some people gave some really nice suggestions. So I'm curious if Wilco or this album would fall into that for you guys. But yeah, I mean, I just felt like they, there's some interesting things on this album. But again, nothing just grabbed me right, by the lapels from the beginning.
It seems to have got some interesting reviews ranging from like mediocre to some people giving it 4.5 out of 5 stars, which is interesting. And I think a lot of that probably depends on who's reviewing it. And,
sure. Yeah,
there's a lot to that bit of it, but as one would expect, the lowest review that I've seen thus far has come from, of course, Pitchfork, in their infinite wisdom.
Well, it's interesting because I mean that was sort of one of the questions I almost was going to have. It was like, is this album a masterpiece or is it kind of a waste of time?
Yeah, I think a waste of time is a little harsh. Personally, but I certainly, I'm not going to say that I won't listen to it again, but there's just so much other stuff from Wilco's catalog that I like more, where I can't. I think I'd be hard pressed to find myself going to this one first.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
And with all due, because I really like Wilco as a band, but I mean, I remember having a fairly similar reaction to Cruel Country.
Yeah, I agree. I think maybe a little underwhelmed. Would that be fair?
Yeah, that's fair, because I just felt like even so one of my favorites by them, Sky Blue Sky, I don't think Sky Blue Sky is particularly like weird. It's probably one of the most straight ahead albums, but it's a great album. And then some of their other stuff can be weirder. It's a little angular, and I like that part of it too. But this one is almost so straight ahead that I don't know how much straighter and ahead you could go.
Okay, well, that's fair. All right, man. All right, well, I think that kind of wraps up our first initial impressions. We would love to know what you guys think of this album. Is this a masterpiece? Is it a waste of time? Is it somewhere in between? Do you like the way the album flows? Would you put the tracks in a different order, maybe like I would?
Would you tell two friends and tell two friends and so on?
So on, yes. So yeah, let us know what you guys think, we have an episode on Sky Blue Sky, and we also did a first impression of their previous album, which was Cruel Country.
And I believe we have an episode called Wilco, Where Do I Start?
Exactly. Yep. So, to that end, it's time to end. Time to go.
Dude and Grim.
The Dude and Grim Show.
Scratch Track is produced by the Dude and Grim. Additional music provided by Moore in the Tims. Copyright 2023. The Dude and Grim Show.